stand and stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And we'll do a roll call. Mr. Olson is here. Mr. Redmond is here. Mr. Hugh is here. Mr. Lixit is here, and I am here. See, Tricia and Scott are absent at this time. Okay, was the meeting properly notified?
Yes, it was.
Okay, at this time, do we have any public comment? I see since we don't have anybody in the audience. Okay, we'll move on with that. We don't have a highlight on youth that I'm aware of. Comments from board members and superintendent.
I have one.
Okay.
It's that time of year for the superintendent annual review. And so it's not on the agenda, but I just want to share the schedule briefly. Tim and I talked about it. Tim will have prepared comments to the board at the next learning session, which is August 6th. At that time, I'll have the, I think that's a closed session agenda item that evening. So Tim will be able to review his comments verbally with us, but then we'll have a chance to read it. I'll email out the survey like I've done in other years. Board comments to be collected and emailed back to me. You'll have basically a week to do that so that I can compile them, and we'll bring it to the regular board meeting on August the 20th. I think it's another closed session agenda that night, so we'll be able to talk through our board comments to Tim. I will do the final summary consolidation, and then you have to write your president comments and have it signed, sealed, and delivered with Tim not later than August the 31st.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions from anybody regarding that?
I will not be at that board meeting.
I'll just get your written comments in.
If you want to talk to me before then.
Yeah, well, you'll have the survey, and if you can just, are you going to Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
actually leaving the 16th.
so yeah, you'll have the survey on the 6th or the 7th, so if you can just take a brief moment and share your thoughts on it, I'll get it incorporated with everyone else's.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as update on the local legislators, Senator Schochner will be with us on the 6th of August, which will be our next learning meeting, and then the following meeting, Representative Staff Schultz will be with us, our August regular board meeting. So, other than that, a couple of quick announcements on meetings for WASB. On August 7th at CISA 11, WASB will be offering a class on the fundamentals of an effective school board. And Al Brown will be leading that. I don't know if any of you know Al. He's usually pretty insightful.
What's the date of that?
It's August 7th. Another date to put on your calendar would be the WASB District 4 regional meeting, which is scheduled for September 27th, which I believe is a Thursday, in Eau Claire at the Florian Gardens. My schedule has changed, so I'm probably going to be attending that now. There is also an election that night. I think some of the papers should have been sent to everybody. If not, anybody that is interested in running for the office of WASB District Representative, they will be having the election that night. I think Bill Yanks is our present one, and he will be running for his third term, I'm pretty sure. So, anybody who is interested in opposing him, let me know and we'll get the paperwork, but at this point, I'm not interested. I think Bill's done a pretty good job, so.
Where's that effective boards meeting at?
effective boards will be at Turtle Lake, at CISA 11. I think I'm probably gonna try and get to that one also,
I'll probably try to go.
so
Likewise, if I don't-
probably carpool from here then,
I need to register.
yeah. It's
Do you
100,
guys wanna take care of that, or?
No, it'd be easier, just did it from the district office, just.
Jeff, Howard, John?
I'm interested, I've gotta check my, police bank
I'll
schedule.
put it in my account
you-
now, it works.
if you would like to notice here,
Okay, we
can
can just
leave it
leave it
with
up there, how it'll happen.
okay. Okay, is there any other, comments from the boards? Superintendent at all at this time? Okay, hearing none, scheduled presentations, I don't have any at this time. Financial reports, we will go into the treasurer's reports in lieu of the absence of the treasurer. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, reading for the treasurer, bank account balances as of June 30th, 2018. Citizen State Bank checking is $2,491,382.38. Citizens Bank money market is $5,771.24. Citizens Money Market Fund 46 stands at $50.98. Citizens Bank Suicide Prevention Funds are $17,390.05. American Deposit Management Referendum proceeds are $193,427.34 for total account balances of $2,708,021.99.
Move to accept as presented.
Okay, I have a motion, David, second Kirk, to accept the treasurer's report as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I, forgot to mention in comments about the annual audit, happened last week, I was out, but, it was outstanding again, Jen. And it's a credit to, everyone involved here in the district office and Jen's leadership, so. We'll have, a report when,
Well, I can talk about it a little bit now, but
okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
that would be,
basically, we had auditors Monday and Tuesday last week, and I think they pulled more stuff than they ever have in the past. We were pulling payroll, AP checks, you name it, and they went through everything, and it was just pretty seamless. We ended up with one journal entry, and that was for a receipt that just got coded to the wrong source account. So,
There goes the district,
yeah,
Yeah.
one out of what? Thousands?
hundreds of thousands probably
Yeah.
over the course of the year.
so, yeah, so it went really well, and as always, Sarah was really good to work with, but we did have 4 people here the first day, which is more than we normally would have. Usually 3 is about the maximum that we have at any time. So we had 4 here the first day and then 3 the second day, and they wrapped it up, and I think they were out of here right around 4 o'clock.
See, they have too much room to move around here.
Yeah.
No, I had a chance to talk to Sarah a little bit,
Yep.
answer a few of their questions. And I think things went pretty well, so. Good job. We appear to be in good shape for accountability for our funds, so. Sounds good. Okay, is there anything else we need to cover on that? Okay, then we'll move into the consent agenda, which consists of approval of meeting minutes for our follow-up para and confirm meeting on May 21st, our SCC board learning meeting on June 4th, our SCC board meeting on June 18th, our special board meeting on June 26th, approval of the monthly bills for July 2018, approval of resignations or retirement. John Hinsman as middle school basketball coach, Shane Coach as the middle school girls basketball coach, Brianna Selman as our 8-hour elementary school nurse, Tony DeSalvo as our FTE 6th grade teacher as of December 20th of this year. Tony DeSalvo, also middle school track and field coach. Glenn Webb as the Director of Teaching and Learning. Approval of appointments and contract modifications. Jane Kerber as a half-time middle school yearbook mentor. Amanda Olson as the half-time middle school yearbook mentor. Ryan Wood as the full-time high school business information teacher, information technology teacher. Also approval of the contract or curricular modification requests for students to enroll in full-time and part-time courses, which consist of 12 part-time, 1 full-time, and approval of the 66-301 agreement on the deaf and hard of hearing with the school district of River Falls, and set July 23rd, 2018 for the SCC budget hearing and annual meeting at 7 p.m. at the high school lecture hall, room 118 in Hammond.
So 2 things, I'd be happy to explain maybe more in closed session, the Tony DeSalvo December 20th resignation date, if you wanna table that. And also I'd like to, ask you to consider, tabling Glenn Webb's resignation, the effective date of July 25th. I'd like to discuss more in closed session.
Okay, so we'll pull those.
Are you asking us to table the December 20th date, or are you just gonna give us more explanation?
I think that one wouldn't need to be tabled. I can just give you an explanation as to
Okay.
the grand plan there.
But we will table the July 25th.
Yeah, I'm asking you to consider that, please.
Okay, so we
Do you
will
need a
pull.
movement to table?
We can, anybody can, on the
Yeah,
board
just
can
pull-
request, just
yeah,
pull it
that's
off
fine.
the consent. We'll discuss it later. Okay, so we pull that. Do we also want to pull Tony DeSalvo and discuss it in the agenda later?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll pull Tony and Glenn off the consent agenda. Is there any other modifications we need to the consent agenda at this time? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended and presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, John, second. David, to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Administrative reports, do we have anything there?
No.
Okay, then we will move on to the next item, which is our staff and recognition. So,
We have 3 this month. To the 8th grade staff, a thank you. Thank you for your effort and dedication in organizing and chaperoning the 2018 8th grade Washington DC trip. This unique and meaningful trip will be remembered for the student's lifetime. A recognition to Ethan Betcher. Congratulations, Ethan, on taking 3rd place at the National Trap Shoot Competition. And a recognition to Mr. Buckle and his 9th grade AP Government students. Congratulations on your success of the AP Government exam, with 94% of students passing and receiving college credit. A huge accomplishment, especially as 9th grade students. Keep up the good work. Those are the board recognitions for the month of July.
okay. Recognize those students and staff. Good job done. Okay, so. Okay, moving on to the next item is consideration of the annual notices, approval of the annual notices that are listed in Exhibit 12B. There's a spreadsheet there. So. Okay, it looks like most of these will be handled by staff, student, parent meetings with the educational options added for part-time enrollment. That's a class 1 notice in the Richmond News. And there's also a class 1 notice on, which one is that?
Student non-discrimination.
Student non-discrimination. Okay. I can't read upside down, so. Okay, otherwise, I don't know if there's any questions, if everybody had a chance to look those notices and the schedules.
Move to approve.
Second?
We have motion approved and a second, by motion David, second John. Any further discussion?
It was John, motion Jeff.
It was motion Jeff.
Okay. My hearing is going bad, so.
That's it.
What? That just never gets old.
Okay, any further discussion?
On tape.
I don't know. That's what I love about this board, all the respect.
You don't enjoy your job, quit doing it, you know? You gotta.
Howard was this close to facilitating the effective board session.
They saw the whole meeting and then they saw it at the very end where everything just goes out of his control. And they went, nope.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, next item is approval of the notice identifying pupil academic standards in mathematics, science, reading, and writing, geography, and history for St. Croix Central School District for the 2018-19 school year. And that is Exhibit 12C and D. So,
I saw the typo. The SCC school board official accepted a so it's supposed to say officially, so I contacted Amanda Olson to ask her to get that corrected on the website.
okay. Okay, if there's any questions or comments on that, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
This is being used how, Tim? This is
To meet
just on
the
the
state,
website?
the state statute requirements, it was 2 or 3 years ago they made this requirement, and yes, this is right off of our website.
Motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion David, second John. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next is consideration of approval of the notice identifying pupil academic standards in mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography, and history for St. Croix Valley Academy of Virtual Education for the 2018-19 school year. It's the same exhibit. So,
Do you need a motion to accept for that one?
yeah, I got a motion Kirk.
Second.
Second, David. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a review of the proposed budget for the 2018-19 school year and levies to be presented at the annual meeting.
So Pam just asked that when you're done today, just leave these at your desk, and she'll bring them to the high school library and set them up by your place. So they're welcome to take their own notes on it, right, Pam, cause they'll get their own back?
Yeah,
Just
put
put
your
the
name
name
on
on
the
it.
top,
Okay.
I'll just put by your place. That'd be great.
Okay.
So we'll just start at the beginning of the packet and kind of go through and talk about everything. So the annual meeting will be next Monday, July 23rd. The budget hearing will start at 7 o'clock, and that's gonna be out at the high school in the lecture hall. So that will be the first time that we've been in our new space. Nice. The annual meeting will follow right after the budget hearing is done. The next page is the table of contents, which just shows what items are included in your packet. I'm gonna just go through this stuff pretty quick. I'll go through the actual budget information a little bit more, but The next is the agenda for the annual meeting. And then page 3 are all the resolutions for the annual meeting. So you guys can kind of take a look at them as we're going through stuff. Pages 4 and 5 are the meeting minutes from last year's annual meeting.
Note, Kirk, that the annual meeting was 9 minutes.
8:55, it shall be.
Okay, you got me
Page-
beat on that one, cause when I ran the annual meeting, it lasted like 45 minutes, I think, that one time.
That one was a little more contested. I'll give you that one. Okay,
Page 6 is the treasurer's report that we read earlier tonight. And page 7 is the letter from Clifton Larson Allen saying they have been here and looked at our books. Page 8 starts the budget information. So we'll start going through the fund balance for this year. As of June 30th of last year, we were sitting at 17.58% of expenditures for our fund balance in Fund 10. We have decreased to 17.11. We did expect it to go down about 0.5%, and it went down just a little bit less than that. We did add about $58,000 to our fund balance this year. Next year, we will expect our fund balance to decrease another approximately 0.5%, which will get us down to right around that 16.5% mark, which is below our targeted rate of 17 to 19%. So we probably will need more discussions on what we wanna do there. I did calculate that in order to keep our fund balance at 17%, we will need to add about $102,000 to our fund balance in 18-19. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll go into our revenues then for Fund 10. So of course, Source 210 is our levy and trailer tax. So the amount that we're including there for our levy is based on an increase of 10 resident students. And that's what we had talked about back in March or April. Actually, I think it might have been February when we talked about budget. So we're adding 10 students for that amount. Our general aid estimate has gone up to $11,695,260. So it's taking into account that increased amount for our general aid, and that's how much the levy would be estimated at. Source 240 is transportation fees that we have been collecting the past few years. I believe we started that in 16-17, and you can see that it went from 8806 up to 14,000 this last year. So we are collecting those.
What are those for, Jen?
That's for like field trips and stuff.
So when the students are paying the $2 or $5 or whatever?
Right. Source 260 is mostly like tech ed, student reimbursable, work permits, advanced placement testing fees and stuff that the kids pay for. This year for 17-18, we also added our Panther Catering and Panther Construction sales in there because they both of those groups did have some sales. So that's why it was increased from the previous year. You can see it went from 21,000 to 27,000. Source 270 is admission to sporting events, plays, and it also includes those student athletic fees. In 17-18, you can see it was increased quite a bit, and we need to remember that that also includes like the football playoffs and different things that we hosted here. So next year, we don't plan we don't budget for the revenue or the expense for those. So that's why you'll see that budget amount for 18-19 is a little bit less. Source 280 is the interest that we earn on our money. Source 290 is other items like summer school, parking permits, band rental, and it also includes building usage. That amount is decreased for 2018-19 because driver's ed was also coded to that. And with that program running through WITC, they will be collecting the funds directly from the students. Source 310 includes our youth apprenticeship grant and a mentoring grant. We're still not sure if we're going to be able to have the mentoring grant again in 2018-19, which is usually about $5,000. So we'll see how that one pans out here as we move along this fall. Source 340 is our open enrollment. So that's when other schools send their kids here. That includes all of our virtual kids that are open enrolling into the virtual program. We had estimated an increase of 37 students from the amount that we had budgeted for 2017-18. And it also includes an increase from $7,055 per student to $7,375 per student, which is what DPI is telling us that open enrolled transfer amount will be for 18-19. Source 590 is our Carl Perkins grant. Source 610 is transportation aid and library aid. Source 620, again, that's our general aid, and that's the July 1st estimate from DPI. So that's the most current number that we have.
That's what, plus 10 students?
The aid is just based on your previous year expenditures.
Okay.
So the rest of it, if we increase in students, will be more on the levy. We'll get the same aid amount.
Okay.
Source 630 is our educator effectiveness and reading readiness grants. Source 660 is our payment in lieu of taxes on DNR land in Warren and Pleasant Valley. And in 16-17, we also had some grant money that was coded to that source. And in 17-18, we had a textbook grant from WITC that was also included in there. So that's why it's a little bit less for this coming year. Source 690 is mostly our per pupil adjustment aid. So that amount is what's increasing $204 for 18-19. So the $204 increase is not in the revenue limit, it's in the per pupil adjustment aid again. So that's why you see that number increasing from 718,000 to 1,045,000. Source, our packet get messed up. Let me go back to, I'll have to fix that. Okay, so source, if you go to page 9, right at the bottom, we're looking at the federal sources, source 710. So you can see source 730 there is our Title II grant, and we are expecting that to go down. Preliminary estimates are for that to decrease down to $23,742. Then if you flip to page 10, right at the top, our Title I grant. Again, the preliminary figure that we're getting is $48,297. And we did have almost 80,000 this year, so those numbers have continued to fluctuate.
Now, those are based on poverty numbers for the county?
Yeah, yep.
think 5% is that threshold, so we're right around it. One year we're just above it at 39, another year just below it, 77. Now I must be just above it.
just above it again, so. Source 770 is payment in lieu of taxes on US Fish and Wildlife land in the town of Warren. That's a small amount, about $1,500. And then source 780 is Medicaid cost settlement. So it's only prior year cost settlements that get coded to Fund 10. The current year cost settlements are coded to Fund 27. Source 860 is sale of fixed assets or insurance claims. You can see over the last couple years, we've had a few different things. We don't budget for them on the revenue or expense side. So in 17-18, we had a bus sale, and then we also had some insurance receipts for the lightning strike at the bus garage. I think it actually happened in the spring, but that money was still coming in throughout the summer last year. Source 960 is our cash over and under. 970 is workers' compensation and insurance dividends and E-rate reimbursements. And source 990 is just like a miscellaneous account. So we put like jury duty pay when the teachers are on jury duty and we pay them their salary, then they have to give us the money that they get from the county. So that type of thing goes in there.
Jen, when people make donations to the district, like we got that gift from the Blockland Estate, for example, for women's athletics,
Yep.
or Ramal's maybe a gift, where does that?
So if it's a donation that we expect to spend in the same fiscal year that we receive it, then we code those to Fund 10 and they're source 290. If it's a donation that we think we might spend some of it this year but not all of it, or we're not gonna spend it for a couple of years, then that goes into Fund 21. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So overall, receipts were increased by 5.4% for 2017-18 when compared to 16-17. And the 2018-19 estimates are a 3.3% increase. Any questions on the revenues? Total revenues $18,078,469. Okay, we'll move on then to the Fund 10 expenditures. So overall, within all the different functions, we have, our staffing changes. I have detailed spreadsheets where I list every person and I cost out what is their salary going to be next year based on the credits that they've taken, and then what are those benefits gonna be for them. So each year I go through and do that. So all of these numbers take into account that very individualized costing for the staff that we have on hand. Keep in mind that we are still seeing a few staff changes though, so it's not set in stone until we get to day one when we start, so.
Yeah, and Lane gave me a list of the staff changes, she had them, so there was quite a list. I think there were 10 people out, and I think there were 14 new hires, and probably another 12 job changes within the district. So there was a lot of shuffling.
And one of the other things that happens even as we get into the school year is we have a teacher that goes out on maternity leave. Maybe they don't have enough sick days to cover the entire amount of their leave. So then they might get paid for part of that leave and part of it's unpaid. So again, there's always changes that are happening throughout the year too.
So
That's
list,
with any staff that would take a leave of absence.
yeah, cause the list I have from Elaine is 2 retirements, 10 resignations, 14 new hires, and approximately 16 job changes, and there are 4 positions yet to be filled. So, that was as of the 4th of July.
So, and again, overall, in all the different functions, we had our salary increases of 2.13% that were approved at the April board meeting. Starting January 1st, 2019, health insurance will increase 9%. We're estimating a 3% increase in our long-term disability rates starting January 1 of 2019. Our dental insurance has a rate lock through December 31st of 2019, so we won't see an increase during the 18-19 school year for that. And we're anticipating no increase in the vision, the district HSA contribution, the district 403B contribution, life insurance, or the cash in lieu option amount. The district portion of WRS is decreasing from 6.7% to 6.55%, also starting January 1 of 2019. So
About how
those
many
affect
dollars
all
is that?
those.
Half a
It's not a
percent.
lot, it's like $15,000, so overall, it's not a huge amount of money, but
5 coaches.
so some other things that are going on within the different functions, so function 110,000, that's mostly elementary instruction. In 17-18, we actually saw a decrease of 3.46%. Most of it was due to some staffing changes that happened at the elementary school, but also we changed the virtual education coordinator from function 110,000 to function 240,000 to better reflect the duties that she's performing. In 2018-19, we expect that function to increase just over 16%. The 4K teachers are becoming district employees, so that's adding some cost in that function, as well as an additional 1st and 2nd grade teacher. And those are both 1 full-time equivalency. Function 120,000 is the middle and high school, regular ed, and also technology. So in 2017-18, we saw that increase by just over 10%. A large portion of that was due to the increased textbook budget. If you remember last year, prior to that, we had 75,000 each year, and then we had a big textbook purchase last year, so we increased that to 200,000. And now for 18-19, that will go back down to the 75,000. We also added ALEX testing at the high school, which was about $8,500. In 18-19, we're estimating a 6.7% increase, and that's due to 1 FTE middle school math interventionist, and then 3 FTEs at the high school, 1 for math, 1 for science, and 1 for ELA. And then along with that, we're reducing the textbook budget by that 125,000 to bring it back down to the 75. Function 130,000. 2017-18, it had a 2.25% increase. Most of that was just due to the staff salaries increasing per the alternative compensation model. And then we also had some FBLA Regional Leadership Conference expenditures in there. So we had the revenue on the revenue side for that, and this was the expenditure side for that. In 2018-19, we expect it to decrease by about 10%, due to some staffing changes, and then we're also not anticipating that we will host that FBLA regional, from what I'm hearing. Function 140,000 is FIED. We had an 18% increase in 2017-18, and that was mostly because of the coding for a staff member that does adaptive FIED. She was doing more adaptive FIED classes in 16-17 than in 17-18, so it changes the amount we put in Fund 27 compared to Fund 10. Overall, it's still the same cost, but it just separates it out differently. In 2018-19, we're estimating a 13.5% decrease, again due to staffing changes and subbing out that driver's ed piece to WITC. Function 160,000 is sports, and we saw about a 37% increase in 17-18. Part of that was because of the new athletic compensation model, and then of course increased travel costs for state football and such. In 2018-19, we're estimating a 4.6% decrease, and we worked pretty closely with Jason on that one, so we're hoping that that's a relatively close number. Function 170,000 is gifted and talented. In 17-18, we added a half-time position there, that's why it increased substantially. And in 18-19, that's mostly just for increased salaries, again on the alternative compensation model. Function 210,000. In 17-18, we saw an increase in guidance staffing. We had a 0.5 FTE increase at the high school and a 1 FTE increase at the elementary. In 18-19, we will see about a 4.5% increase because of the additional 0.5 psychologist. Keep in mind that only 16% of that is coded to Fund 10 and the rest goes into Fund 27. Function 220,000 is library and professional development and some other miscellaneous things. Prior to 2017-18, we had coded our IT department to that function, and we were required to change that to function 260,000, so that's why it decreased for 17-18. In 18-19, we are expecting just over a 4% increase in that function. Function 230,000 was basically a flat cost for 17-18. We had our staff salary and benefit increases, but we had some audit costs that went down because we didn't have a membership audit this past year. So we kind of was a flat overall. And for 18-19, we're just estimating those salary and benefit increases. Function 240,000 is the principal's offices. In 17-18, we had a 24% increase due to adding a middle school assistant principal athletic director. And we also changed the virtual ed coordinator coding to this function. And then we added that 0.5 virtual education secretary as well. 2018-19, we're expecting about a 4.8% increase. Function 250,000, that's the big one that includes all the fiscal, maintenance, the copy room, the transportation. In 17-18, we had a 9% increase. We added an additional 1.5 FTE district office staff. We also, this didn't really change it too much, it mostly just changed it from salary and benefit, or from a purchase service to salary and benefits when we hired our own cleaning staff, but that was a change. And we purchased a bus also in 17-18. In 18-19, we are estimating a 5.7% decrease. The budget does not include a bus for next year. And then we still have the $50,000 for facilities acquisition. Again, that's for all 3 buildings. And then we're estimating $85,000 for bus fuel.
Jen, have we ever run a number on what well, we'll just stay on this. So,
You got a question, ask it, John.
I just wonder what our real cost of maintenance over 20 years is, and, are we being short-sighted in our, I mean, we have 50,000 that covers taking care of the bare minimum. We have $50 and 38 cents in our maintenance fund. And long-term, we're gonna count on the goodness of the constituents if we have a major need. So, just more reasons to advocate for average funding. But I don't know what the real cost of maintenance over 20 years is. I know we had some of those charged from McKinstry, but I don't think we've updated those in a couple years now. And it may be worth knowing what that number is. But that's off topic, so.
Function 260,000 is postage and telephone. And it now also includes our IT department. Their salaries and benefits are being coded to this function, as well as the auditorium manager. So that's why we saw such an increase in 17-18. We're expecting that to be consistent for 18-19. Function 270,000 is insurance and unemployment. So in 17-18, we saw about a 7% increase, mostly due to our liability and auto insurance and stuff, workers' comp and premiums. In 18-19, we're expecting it to be about 1.5% increase. Our student insurance premiums are going up $356 for 18-19, and that was after a no rate increase for 17-18. So those have remained pretty stable. Function 280,000, you'll notice in 16-17 there was a large amount there, and that was because we paid off a bus lease. And then in 17-18 it decreased, so it's only the cost for those third-party payer fees for our debt service that are going into that account. Function 290,000 is our local retirement benefit. So we had prepaid $371,000 in 16-17, and we were not able to make any prepayments in 17-18, so it decreased by 90%. And the amount for 18-19 is the amount we will have to pay this year to maintain current status on our local retirement benefit. And in 2019-20, if we're not able to make a prepayment at the end of this year, we will have to add another $200,000 to that budget for next year so that we can meet those current obligations. Function 410,000 is the transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 to cover the amount that we don't receive in categorical aid for our special ed costs. We're expecting that to increase slightly because we are adding a special ed teacher at the high school and that half-time psychologist that's partially coded to Fund 27. Function 430,000 is our open enrollment and 4K tuition. So we saw an increase in our open enrollment tuition of 6.45% increase. Most of that was due to that per pupil amount increasing from $6,639 to $7,055 last year. We're estimating a decrease next year, and that's mostly because of hiring those 4K teachers. Now that money is being added up in function 110,000, and we won't be paying it out of function 430 as tuition. We'll be paying it as salaries and benefits. And then we're also estimating that increase in the DPI open enrollment amount from 7,055 to 7,375. So overall, our Fund 10 expenditures are increasing about 3.69% to 18,078,469. Any questions on Fund 10 expenditures?
Other than the fact that the special ed funding has really increased over the years. I think when I started, it was around 600,000 to 700,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's nearly tripled.
It's gone up a lot, yeah, as we've added staff. And the other thing that's happening is the categorical aid reimbursement is decreasing. So when I first started, we were seeing maybe right around that 30% categorical aid reimbursement back from the state on our special ed costs, and now it's closer to 25. So that 5% makes a difference too in the amount that we have to transfer. Cause we have to zero out that fund at the end of every year. So the next section is our special funds, which the first one is Special Projects Fund 21 and 27. For the annual meeting, we combine them into one, but you'll notice that the ending fund balance at the end of the 17-18 school year was $103,709, and that is the girls' athletic donation, some suicide prevention funds, and some other funds that we've received. So those are the ones that are carrying forward year after year. So Fund 27 is also in there, and so for the 18-19 budget, I anticipated that we would spend about $75,000 of the donated funds for girls' athletics and suicide prevention and such. And that would leave us with a balance of about $28,000 in there. The rest of the costs are all for special ed. So again, we talked about it a little bit, but we had the increases for the psych, and we also, for 17-18, saw increases because we had that one elementary position for special ed that we added in January of 2017. So in 16-17, it was only like a half a year's worth of costs in the books. And now this last year, it was the full year because we added that as a full-time position. We also had some additional para support needs, and we ended up increasing our speech and language by about a quarter of a FTE, so 0.25. If you flip to page 11, we have our non-referendum debt, and that's our WRS refinance as well as our energy efficiency projects. And all of those revenues and expenditures are based on our debt service schedules that we'll look at in just a few minutes. And then Fund 39 is all of our referendum approved debt, and off those debt service schedules that Beard prepares for us. Fund 40, we still have about $100,000 left to spend in the referendum proceeds. With the late spring and the bad weather this past spring, we just weren't able to get everything together to spend those funds, so we're gonna be working on that right away this fall to get that cleaned up. Food service is Fund 50. You can see that they added about $60,000 to their fund balance, so they had a very good year. And we'll continue with a budget next year of $735,000. Community service, we're estimating about $405,000 for revenues and expenditures for the different programs, and we'll go through that in just a minute as well. So if you flip to page 12, right at the top, you can see the proposed tax levy. So the general fund levy would be $3,195,006. Non-referendum debt, $1,252,370. Referendum approved debt, $2,303,145. Community service, $70,000. And that gives us a total of $6,820,521. If we assume a 2% increase in our equalized valuation, which is pretty conservative, it would put our mill rate at about $10.65 per thousand. In comparison, in 17-18, it was $10.78. So it'd go down slightly. The rest of the budget packet from where it says General Fund 10 and on is the same information, it's just laid out a little bit differently. By Wisconsin law, we're required to give the taxpayers this information both ways. Any questions on that? Okay, if you go to page 14 is our community service fund 80 summary. So you can see all the different programs. We have 7 different programs that we run underneath our community ed. And as you page through, you can see the different budgets for each one of those programs. The Kids Care program continues to grow over at the elementary school. We're estimating about $275,000 worth of revenue for them next year.
How much of that is, because it says user fee and tax levy, how much of that is not supported by user fee?
Actually, it has all been supported by user fees, but we put the tax levy in there just in case they were to expend a little more than what they have brought in.
And is that a break even, or is that putting dollars into other parts of the district?
Any balance would stay within their program.
Okay.
So that's page 15 and 16. If you go to page 17, we have our energy exemption information. So the first page was that original $11 million. And then page 18 was the $2 million energy efficiency projects that we did.
I guess the question that I have is you have expected savings, utility savings, you have realized utility savings, and then you have the project of the operations and maintenance savings.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference in that?
If you remember when we were going through those, they had the savings that were like guaranteed, you're going to have these savings, and it's mostly utilities, like your heat and your electric and your water and sewer, because I think we did some water projects and different things. And those they estimate and they say you're going to save this amount. Whereas the operational is more like, now we don't have to hire someone to go around and do this certain task, so we expect you're going to save X amount of money. So it's a savings, but it's not
Tangible dollars, cause it's dollars we're not spending it, we're not spending it from dollars we have.
right. So we're not, just because we don't have to pay a staff member to do this certain thing or whatever they're saying, doesn't mean we're not paying them to do something else then.
Right.
You know?
And isn't there something where they were guaranteeing that we would save this money or they pay the difference?
Right, so last year we did receive back, I think it was like $300 from them. And you can see that the expected utility savings in the $11 million was 44,000. And we only realized 42,000, so we will be getting some money back from them again. That's part of the energy efficiency exemption, is that those companies have to guarantee that we will see that savings. Our $2 million one, we realized more than what they said we would, so we're doing good on that one. Page 19 is the 2017-18 mill rate summary of all the CISA districts. And you can see where we fall there. Page 20 and 21 are debt service schedules for Fund 38. And page 22 and 23 are debt service schedules for Fund 39. Page 24 is a history of our equalized values as well as our mill rates and levies. And then page 25 is our calendar for 18-19.
When's the last time Brian reviewed our, debt service?
Not since referendum.
That was the
Right.
last time. Yeah, each year he sends us the updated debt service schedules, so they take off all the payments that have been made, so it's current. But he has not reviewed them with us. I'm just looking at this.
Yeah, we're a couple years out from that substantial shelf.
So have you done any
Which one are you looking at?
stress testing on the evaluation? What is 1% difference change to our mill rate?
I did not do that, Jeff. I mean, we certainly could run some projections to see what that looks like. One additional note about the debt service schedules is you'll notice that some of the principal payments are boxed in. Those are the ones that we can, refinance. So right now, it looks like the only ones that would be callable is the $2 million state trust fund loan. Well, I don't know why we would wanna refinance that, cause it's a pretty low interest rate. And then in Fund 39, we don't have anything that's callable until 2022. So as we get closer to some of those dates, I'm sure Brian will be looking at it and saying, would it be advantageous for us to call those bonds and sell new bonds to have some potential savings there.
So Jen, just making sure I understand this correctly, I'm looking at the Fund 38 on page 21.
Okay,
So in 18-19, we're gonna make a $1.2 million payment. Is that correct? That fiscal year total?
yes,
And then in 19-20, we make another 1.2.
That includes principal and interest,
Right, but it's, I mean, that's what we pay.
right,
And then in 2021, we pay 648, and over time, it basically stays between, right around that 650,000.
correct.
So that difference of 600,000 or so, does that go back into our budget for other use?
No, because we're levying additional specifically for the energy efficiency debt service payments. So if we don't have the payment, we can't levy that additional amount.
Okay, so it just reduces what the obligation to the levy is.
Right.
Does that open up cap again for us?
Is Fund 38 included? I would think it would.
I don't know if it was included or not. The reason I'm asking the question is, if we look at wage and benefits, we wanna get our teachers to 110% of CSA average.
600,000 go a long way.
600,000 goes a long way. And so, you know, one of the ways that we saw Oregon District do it is that they actually had excess levy that they passed, and it's not a limited, I mean, it's a continuous excess levy, right?
No sunset?
No sunset is what my,
That's
if I remember that
Yeah,
correctly.
recurring,
Recurring, thank
operational.
you.
Yeah.
Now, operational levies cost us a little bit more by mill rate and how they get capitalized, but we've gotta be thinking, are we 1 year away, 2 years away? And as we get into some of these shelves, if we're serious about being the district of choice and wanting to pay the wages where we think we wanna be paying them, we're gonna have to look at it, and to me, there's two ways to do it. Get the average of the state, or go to excess operational recurring referendum. And so I just want to be thinking about, you know, 1 and 2 and 3 years out, that if it still goes off the taxpayer, is there, can we keep the cost to the taxpayers the same and be leveraging these dollars in a new way? So I don't think it's too early to be formulating some of those ideas, because we as wage and benefits are gonna start having to ask, how do you get to 110% without it taking 16 years to do it? Thank you. It might be a good question for Brian. That help us understand what it would take.
You get $500,000 a year more.
Okay. Anything else, Jen?
That is it. We will have the packets fixed, so basically page 8 is gonna be removed. So it's not duplicate. And
You
then,
just want to scroll
yeah.
down now?
That's why we ended up off on our pages, I'm sure. Probably why.
Of course, that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
Wrong. This is wrong, yeah.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the budget then?
I think for Jeff's point, you know, we're looking at the valuation. I think something we definitely need to consider, I think, cause when you look at the rates, I mean, you go back to 2007, 2008 was sort of the peak. And then it dropped. In 2017, 18, we finally got back over the $600 million mark. It took us a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And the percentages increasing and decreasing all over the place in that decade. So So I think to Jeff's point, definitely kind of like they said, a stress test of, if it comes in 1 or 2% either side of that, what does that do then with the mill rate? But I think those are definitely some
That's
good
definitely,
scenarios to plug in there.
definitely more than 2% property valuation increase with all the building it's been,
Yeah, how many starts did we had last year? I mean, in our year, I think it was 60 or
68
so.
or something like that, yeah.
and that'll just help our mill rate, which is just helps the taxpayer, right? Not us operate.
I'm fully evaluating that, estimating that it's gonna be well above the 2% mark.
Then you just have to figure out what each 1%
Shifts the mill.
and then you can multiply it up or down.
3 of the lots that we were looking at building that are being built on right now. Go past.
Okay, do you need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
Okay, so we have a motion, Jeff, second, John,
No, I'm gonna do. I wanna oversee.
approve the budget to be presented at the annual meeting next week, July 23rd. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Jen,
Thank you.
and all the staff for the work you guys do on that.
Our staff in the district office is amazing. I mean, I told Tim that too, that they just have their nose to the grindstone and they're so accurate and fast, and I just can't say enough good about them.
That's good. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else we need to cover at this time? Open session. Hearing none. Important dates, we have the annual meeting next Monday night at the high school lecture hall at starting 7 p.m. with the annual meeting to immediately follow the budget hearing. August 6th is our board learning and special meeting. We will also have Senator Schochner at that meeting. August 20th is our SCC regular board meeting at 7 p.m. at the district office. Again, we will have Representative Staff Schultz at that meeting. Other dates that we've noted are the WASB class on August 7th at Turtle Lake, and the WASB District 4 meeting September 27th. Are there any other important dates that I have missed? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to go convene in closed session for Wisconsin State Statute 1985 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. As consideration of recommendations from the Wage and Benefit Committee and other personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, Kirk, second, John. All those in favor, roll call vote, Kirk?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Okay, do we need to take a break?
No.
No.
Okay, then we will go right